Welcome back to the Kindness Code. We have got a fantastic guest today. Rhiannon Hughes, who grew up in the care system in two countries, both here in the UK and in Spain, and now has spent her career making sure that other children have much better experiences in care. Welcome, Rhiannon.
Hi, Carmel. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful to have you here. Let's just kind of start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and what it was like.
I would say it was quite troublesome, very tough upbringing. I was known by social services at a very young age. So when I was a baby, there was domestic violence abuse. And then I went into care probably when I was about 7. I'm the oldest sibling of 5. At the time we went into care, we were just 4 kids. It was quite tough the way that social services went about it. My home was kind of raided by police officers, and we were put into 4 different cars. So, as I had that kind of mother role already, it was quite traumatic. Not knowing where we were going or whether I would see my siblings again. Um, and then obviously, like you said, I was in care in Spain as well. So my parents were able to take social services to court and win us back. And then that's when they decided to kind of pick up and go to Spain, um, where again, none of that information was passed on by local authorities in the UK to the Spanish authorities. So it's kind of for them, it's like they started again. But obviously 6 months down the line, the same problems occurred, and we were then put into care in Spain, which was quite tough because I didn't speak Spanish, and obviously you're surrounded by Spanish kids. So I had to learn Spanish very quickly. Um, and there was a lot of bullying and stuff like that was quite troublesome. Um, but yeah, I have literally been my whole childhood in care, even though I was returned back to my parents 3 times during that time. So in 10 years, we were able to kind of go back to them.
How does that make you feel? Did you want to go back to your parents as a child, or do you feel let down now by or sorry, it's really conflicting because you were loved by your parents and they wanted you, but they weren't safe, and then were you being kept safe by the state as well? Like, what's your feelings around that?
I think now that I'm an adult, things weren't done appropriately. When you're a child, all you want to do is to go back to your parents. Like, you don't acknowledge that feeling of unsafe. You acknowledge that feeling of love that you have towards your birth parents. So at the time, we did want to go back, and obviously, you have supervised visits where you're looked at, and then obviously you have a psychology team as well. So you're constantly observed during those visits that you have with your parents. But yeah, I think now, as a grown adult, it wasn't done right. We definitely shouldn't have returned back to them as many times.
And so what's your kind of what was it like in the care system? What do you really remember? How did it feel?
Um, it was tough. I mean, you have that stigma. People have stigma, outside of the care system, but you as a child in care, you do feel ashamed and embarrassed about the fact that you're a child in care. Um, I think the biggest thing is our relationships. You don't feel like you have that network and that support system. You kind of feel a little bit like you're on your own. Um, so loneliness and anxiety. I went through depression as well as a teenager. So it is quite a traumatic experience to go through. But I have had some lovely carers that I'm still in touch with now, on social media that pop up now and again, and we have a chat. And they did kind of make a big difference to my life when I was with them in that home.
And do you still have a relationship with your parents?
I decided to stop my relationship with them. It was tough because it was a tough situation because they would manipulate things. And for my sanity, I felt like if I cut those ties, then I would be able to move on and move forward.
We've spoken a few times for the podcast, and you seem so remarkable because, there's constant conflict that your childhood must have been between your parents in the state and moving countries and being in care. It sounds like you probably had fairly decent care experiences on the whole, but you still had all that trauma and all that conflict. You wear it very lightly. Thanks. Because you're still quite a young woman. And how did you move through that? How did you get being? We'll talk about all the incredible things you're doing, but I just am so intrigued how with your childhood, which was right from being a baby,
Yeah.
there was all the trauma. How did you? I'm just so intrigued. How do you get to be where you are now?
Yeah. I A lot of people ask me this, and I pin it to a moment where something clicked. So I was in a care home where I shared a room with another girl, and we had bunk beds. And she was sexually abused by her stepfather, and she would scream at night, and it helped me empathize with the fact that she was going through something very traumatic. And although I was a victim of my own story, perhaps I felt like she was going through something worse. And it made me be a lot more compassionate. And I had this empathy towards her. And I don't know, something clicked. I think as well, being the oldest sibling, and kind of having that mother role, if you ask any of my siblings, I'm a bit bossy. I do take on, I do take on that kind of role model. But yeah, it definitely helped me. Being responsible for my siblings definitely helped me move forward and kind of go, well, chin up, I have to care about them.
It's incredible. And so you've left care and you built something remarkable with your recruitment company for the care sector. And but how did you get there? What were those early years like after you left care?
Yeah, leaving care was really tough. I was in Spain at the time, so I was about 15, and I actually went missing from care quite a lot. This was always kind of manipulated by my parents, but I had,
Let me just stop you there. If anyone's listening, because we have a few missing incidences, and the idea that you're just working through your stuff, and then look at you now. So for anyone listening who's working with teenagers who are troubled, and I know our team does so much, and youth mentors give so much, and
Mhm.
but you're just working through what's going on inside, isn't it? And then and there's just that the idea of hope and aspiration for our kids that we're caring for because of you now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think people have to remember that they are also teenagers, they're not only just going through the trauma from being a child in care, they are also going through a very hormonal stage of their life. Um, and sometimes, in my example, missing from care was because I wanted to be back with my parents and they kind of helped facilitate that. But it's also you feel like you don't belong. So running just feels safer. That's what made me feel safe, was just leaving. Some people, now as an adult, I'll go for a run or I'll go for a walk, but yeah, as a kid, I think that's what people should understand, really, is that feeling of being unsafe and just needing a break. And that's probably why most of them do go missing.
Um, Sorry, I interrupted your question, but it's just fascinating. So you were going missing a little bit around your 15 in Spain. So kind of what was the next step? How did you move on as moving to
So I actually, if we rewind back a little bit, I when I was in care, I you'd go in a van, we'd go to a street market on a Sunday, and I found an abandoned dog, and I took the dog in my backpack and I hid at the back of the van, and I took this dog back to the foster home with me. And after a couple of days, I got found out. So I ran away with the dog because I'd been separated from my siblings. I'd been in hospital for depression and eating disorders. So having this dog was kind of like a new relationship for me where I was able to be responsible again for someone. And I didn't want to leave that. So I ran away with this dog. And yeah, I think in the UK, there's a lot more red tape around a child missing from care, where in Spain, it was, I want to say, a bit easier. Like I dyed my hair, I put in contact lenses, I was in an area where nobody kind of knew that I had friends in, I wasn't close to my family. So I was able to step away from the care system at 15 and start my own life independently. So for those that might know, I was in Mallorca, so I worked in Magluf at the age of 15. I worked on the streets, just like being a PR girl or a shop girl, and everything was paid in cash. There was no contract. So I did have to give the dog away to a friend for a couple of months because I was living rough, on beaches or on friends' couches. But eventually, at 16, I rented my first apartment and I was able to get my dog back. And that's kind of how my independent life started.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's just so incredible, and you're resilient and brave, and you just did it at 15, unbelievable. And there's a little bit about the the Spanish social care system.
So yeah, absolutely.
Um, Absolutely incredible, because you said to me that you said you don't an advice is don't let your pain and anger ruin what the future has in store for you. And you just embody that. But where did that come from? When did you go, I am not my trauma? And
Yeah.
just moving forward, was it conscious, or did you just survive?
I relate it to back when my youngest brother was adopted by a Spanish family, and I was very angry about that because they wanted to change his surname, they wanted to change his nationality. So I was so angry about that situation that everything around me, although I was pretty well set up at 16, that felt like a big traumatic thing where my whole world started to collapse again. I'd done so well. And then because of this, I took like 3 steps back. Um, and I don't know, like subconsciously, I suppose, I was able to, apologize and build that relationship back with them in order to see my brother. And I think that helped, yeah, letting go definitely helped me have a clearer conscience and be able to be forward. So, yeah, I would definitely say to any kid that's kind of going through that pain at the minute, although it's very valid, the pain that they're suffering with. If you learn to let go little by little, you won't be so much of a victim, of your own story. You'll be able to kind of empower yourself to be better.
And you make it look easy. Yeah, because it's almost like the gift you wanna give to these young people who've had a poor start to life, and but you but, that's kind of like the conundrum of how do we help our young people that have been in care know that it's so difficult, but
Yeah.
they don't have to be there as part of their identity. Um, so really incredible, but then how did you end up getting a recruitment company in the care sector, and what made you choose to go to work in care?
Yeah. I kind of fell into it, to be honest. So at 19, I owned my own pub with my husband. And we kind of sold just before COVID, and we decided that we wanted to buy a house and have a child and be a bit closer to his family. So we moved from Spain back to the UK. And although being a business owner, I wasn't very proud, and well, I needed to work. So a job came up in the village where I lived, and it was a it wasn't a living carer, but I did do very long shifts with a gentleman that had motor neuron disease. He was end of life care, palliative care. I felt very unqualified for the job, but I made such a difference to him and his family's life that it kind of empowered me when the time came and he sadly died, to move into more a childcare role. So I became a bank worker, an agency worker, and I used to go in very confident and, adapt to any kind of environment and be able to help, especially care leavers, understand that, that this is you write your own story now. Like you're out of the care sector. I think one of the biggest things that I would encourage is get to work, because through work you meet friends, you pay your bills, you have that sense of responsibility, and that's how you're able to build that life for yourself as you move over to adulthood. So I was with a young care leaver that had very complex needs, and I made a big change to her life and the team that I led. And then I got pregnant, and my husband had a background in recruitment. So we decided, because I was very exposed to incidents and not very well supported by the company at the time, that I would step down. Um, for anyone that knows me, I like to take risks. So obviously, being pregnant and going self-employed was a big risk, but we knew we could do it. So yeah, we decided to open residential recruitment. Um, and my husband did the permanent side, and I opened the temp arm. So the story behind that was because as a agency worker myself, I felt like I wasn't very well supported because you go into different care homes. Anyone that's part of a team has supervisions, has appraisals. They feel as they're part of the team. But when you're an agency worker, you don't have those follow-ups, so you constantly feel like you're not part of something. So I wanted to change that, and I wanted to make sure that, the 30 staff that we had on our books in Leicestershire did feel like they belonged somewhere, and they did have those kind of supervisions and appraisals that you're meant to have in a team. Yeah, so that's how that started.
And then, what do you look for when you're recruiting people to work in job? What's your red flags and what are your green flags?
I would say, um, one of the things that I would look for is how will that person deal with emotional distress. Like, say you have a young child that's complex, that has challenging behavior. Are you able to go into that shift and kind of not be emotional towards, I don't know, insults or swearing or aggression? Are you able to be patient? Patience is one of the biggest things, and be consistent. I think if somebody isn't gonna be that consistent carer for a young person, then I wouldn't hire them. Um, One of the red flags, I don't know. I think it's there's been a big shift at the minute in the sector, and some people are just in it to kind of make money, and I think if you're just going to go in and do your job because you get paid, then you're in the wrong job. You have to care for these kids for sure.
Yeah, that would be the experience I've seen. It's just been humbling for me, not coming from a care sector, seeing these beautiful, kind people
Yeah.
that we had a missing incident on the weekend. We had 4 of them out until 3 in the morning finding this child, and they found her and they brought her home. The police actually said they'd never had a care team care for the kids so much, and I'm kind of like, "No, do it." And they left their own children at home, and and yeah, but it has to be something deep inside you. It's not something you can just do for the money.
No, no, absolutely not. You have to care, and you have to want to empower, and yeah, and make a difference.
What do you think is the biggest thing that's missing in residential care settings? Like, if you could wave your wand, what would you change for children?
Yeah. Um, I think, I mean, coming from a recruitment standpoint, um, there are a lot of homes now registering for EBD and LD, which I think is really, really beneficial, because I have spoken to managers in the past where a child's very settled, but say they're on a waiting list to get a diagnosis, that diagnosis comes in, then they have to end a placement because the home's only registered for EBD. and that child now has a diagnosis for LD, so they have to enter that placement because of their registration, and that child needs to move, you know.
I didn't realise that.
And I think it's a big problem, you know.
Learning difficulties, there's a whole spectrum, isn't there? So if they were probably doing okay at home, then
Yeah, no, that's why I would, if I talk to directors that aren't kind of in the registration process yet and are just starting out, it is something that I definitely recommend them doing, you know, is to register for both because like I said, yeah, if they have that diagnosis, then they have to end that placement, which is really sad and unsettling for a child that's doing really well, you know, and that it just adds to the trauma. So, that's one of the things. I mean, there's so many, Carmel, you know, there's so many.
I forgot. But yeah, interesting. That's a really, say my learning journey. That's not something that I've heard about
Mhm.
as a thing. And I feel like we're getting a little bit more neurodivergence come through, and I feel like things are changing a little bit,
Yeah,
just with the world and maybe whatever. But that's a really good top tip to end placements that are settled is just so sad.
just based on a registration, it's just, yeah, it's silly.
Um, you kind of said how you actually try and help care leavers find job in residential care.
Mhm.
Message to any care leavers thinking about a career in care.
Yeah, I would say you can't teach lived experience, you know, and I think you have to be in the right mind frame and you have to have let go of that anger and that pain that I talked about before to be able to go in and read care files and not be emotional and not be triggered by that. But to have that knowledge of care and know what that child's going through, you can't teach that. So I would 100% recommend any care leaver that isn't sure about what they're going to do and what career path they're going to take to try and get back into the sector. And I know loads of managers that are care leavers, you know, and after 5 or 6 years, they're now a registered manager and making a big difference to the care sector at the minute. So yeah.
Because it is quite an incredible career path if you want to get to manager, or even if you want to stay around, senior or team leader, you can make such a huge difference. And you're right, that experience is just it can't be taught, can it? To understand what it truly is like. But anyway, you have done brilliantly with your recruitment company, and you are about to open your first care home.
I
Tell me a little bit about that and what's the vision and what your care home's gonna be.
Yeah. So we're opening up Next Step Children's Care. Our home is just kind of in the border between Leicester and Derby. We're starting off quite small. We're doing a solo therapeutic home. I feel like there is a big need for children that aren't matched very well to others and need a bit more support with a higher staffing ratio, especially for a lot of care leavers don't like this word placement breakdown, you know, which are obviously kids that have changed homes multiple times during a short space. I think there is a big need for that at the minute, especially children that are on a deprivation of liberty safeguard, so on a dole's order. They're very misunderstood by some people that come into the sector and don't know about the care system. So a dole's order could be anything. You know, I've been on a dole's order where I wasn't allowed to have a mobile phone, or the front door has to be locked, or there has to be window restrictors, or, you know, there could be multiple different things. And I feel like they're very misunderstood. So I am looking to open up a home that we are open to taking on children that are going through that kind of experience at the minute. I am very picky about my staff team. You know, we have found a manager that I feel matches my values and my energy. Anybody that comes through our door as a carer, I want them to be there because they care. It's not a job. It's not just a job. It's because we care. It's because we're going to be a family. You know, you spend a lot of time at work. And I want to make sure that everybody is happy and that we everybody has the tools and the resources to make that difference. I hear a lot of stories about budgets for activities, or for resources, and these things kind of get cut. And I don't want that to happen in our home. I want there to be enough for everyone to kind of do a really, really good job and look after the children well. So it's been it's been tough. It's been very tough. Obviously, I've been up at night doing all the policies and the procedures. Like, I love that bit, just kind of putting my vision on paper and being able to then pass it on to the RI or the manager for them to kind of then put their own print on it. Um, I'm very excited. And sometimes I go to the home and I feel a bit emotional, about where we are with our journey. I'm very excited. Very excited.
I bet you are. I think it would just be incredible. I'm sure the day that it probably officially opens, it will be deeply emotional for your own journey and what then you're giving back. And I think in this sector, there's so many people who are opening homes for the wrong reasons. And I believe what we're doing at Niche, and I think there's a lot of people like you as well saying, no, we're just going to be awesome.
Yeah.
We really genuinely provide a care that comes from a good place,
Yeah.
make a difference rather than just, you know, kind of just hold the kids. Because I think there's a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people try and run as well before they can walk. So for me, it's really important that we have a very good, solid foundation with our first home, so that then we can kind of copy and paste that model of care and those foundations before we open up the next home. A lot of people open up 4 homes in their first year, because they've bought properties, but then you can't staff them, and then you struggle. So I think it's really important to get the first hub right, and then we will grow organically.
When I bought we have their children, and we've had to turn the whole to them around. We did it just a fun day, and I did rounders the park, and we did a pick back, and it's taken a whole year to change that culture. And you need to be the good people to look after that, because it's quite easy to turn it bad, but just to keep it,
Yeah.
or you're going to be absolutely amazing at it. But it's quite ethereal. How do you create a culture where people are out talking in the morning on a Saturday night gearing for our kids? And then they all turn up for the rounders day, and while they're planning the next day that we're going to do, and it's quite magical when you put that team together. But I agree, you can't just grow, because if you don't, without people,
No.
we don't have anything. We're not caring for the kids. We don't.
Yeah, and staff need to feel supported. It's not only just about the children. The staff are the people that lead your ship, so you have to make sure that they are supported and that you are flexible on certain things. Because what if you give back, they'll give back to you.
Yeah, and what I found actually coming to the sector, that all this kindness to children and all the understanding about the trauma didn't always uh, be shared with the team. We didn't have this. We were kind of like, they're there to work, and the kids are everything. It's like, we have to, as leaders in our homes, we have to demonstrate the kindness and the care, and it starts all the way through the team. And I feel like that's maybe what we've done at Niche, is just actually say all of it. Everyone is valued in this home. Everyone, from all the children all the way through, and then you create the culture of really kind people because they feel valued. And all the things we talk about with kids, if you do it as well with your team, that's what makes a difference. It just fosters that whole culture.
Yeah.
And, and really caring for people. But we're excited for you. I think you're gonna your journey is absolutely unbelievable.
Thank
Um,
you.
what is the one thing you want everyone who works in care of children to understand? Perhaps something that only someone who has been in the care system themselves or true.
I Good question. Good question. I mean, I think most of the people that work in the care sector will probably understand this, but the behavior is a way of them communicating. It's not about what they say or what they do. If they're behaving a certain way, it's because they're trying to tell you something. And if you've worked in residential for a number of years, that does make sense. But yeah, I It's hard, isn't it? Because I've done both. I've lived it and I've worked in it. I suppose it's hard for me to narrow it down to one thing, but yeah, I would say that the behaviour is communication.
I think it's really interesting, that you were a child that went missing, and I first started thinking, look at you now, and I've spoken to quite a few care leaders. The idea that we have to have aspiration for our kids,
Hmm.
that it's easy to hear all the negative, isn't it? That they're likely to end up in prison or having terrible lurid, but actually, it's not. That can't be the story, because if that's our story inside our heads, that will become.
Yeah. Well, and if anyone can, if you've been through that experience and you're able to talk about it and you're able to share those lived experiences, it helps professionals then be able to reflect on practices. Um, you can make a success story out of that lived experience, which is exactly what I try to empower kids to do. If you feel comfortable with sharing your story, and then you're already on the trajectory to success.
Um, this has been amazing. You really are. I just incredible that everything you've been through, and then you're going on, and I love the idea that you're opening homes, and well, it's homes plural, so only single at the moment, but you've got plans, haven't you?
Plans. I've got plans, yes, but at the moment we just want to focus on the one. Yeah. Mhm.
And yeah, all the very best, and thank you so much for sharing your time, and some really just a beautiful story, a really aspirational story. And all the best with your home. When's it going to be open?
Well, I'm hoping that by October, November, we'll be open. Obviously with Ofsted, you never know. So we have to put in contingencies in the event that doesn't happen. But yeah, if I could have a magic wand and say, yep, we'll be ready by then, it would be, yeah, for October, November.
Well, putting all the positive vibes out to the universe and to Ofsted, because I think you'll have an absolutely wonderful home. Thanks a lot, and I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.
Lovely. Thanks, Carmel. All the best.